It's finally dyno time, and in this video we're taking my 1964 Mercury Comet to the dyno to see if my budget work has paid off. The end goal here is going to be able to see whether it has a higher power to weight ratio than a brand new Mach 1. Let's check it out. All right, let's pump the brakes. Before we go ahead and show you those numbers, if you haven't watched this series, let's rewind back and show you how we got to where we are today. I'm going to show you the original baseline of the Comet, of the Mach 1, the numbers, the weight, all the parts we added. We're going to do a quick recap, and then we'll come back at the end. We'll show you all the dyno numbers, and we will be able to tell whether or not, in fact, we hit our goal with the Comet.
So step one, we got to figure out how much this thing weighs. So off to the scales we went, and we weighed the Comet with 3/4 of a tank of gas. In bone stock configuration, this thing weighed 2940. After that, it was off to the dyno, because again, we got the weight. We need to see how much horsepower it makes. We went to Premier Performance, slapped it on the dyno, and here's how it did. As we can see, this thing is pretty torquey to begin with. It makes all this torque and it just dies off. So chances are what we're gonna see here, hopefully, is we're gonna see an increase in torque, but we probably will lose down here, but it'll ride up further up here. And again, we were only revving this thing to 5,000 RPM.
All right, cool. So we know how much this made, but how much power did this Mach 1 make in stock form? Well, we'll show you a video real quick, and then I'll walk over to the board and we'll talk about the numbers that we have to hit so you have an idea of our baseline. So here are the numbers after the dyno pool for the Mach 1. 441 horsepower to the tire and 389 foot-pounds, not too bad. But when you look over here, a Mach 1's heavy. It's 3870, right? Compared to 2940 for the as kind of found weight of the Comet. So that equates to 0.114 horsepower per pound and 0.1 foot-pound of torque per pound of weight. So these are the numbers that we would have to hit at this weight to make this have more power to weight than that. Let's dig into it.
All right, let's start tearing this thing down. So in these previous videos, I've got these all on my channel. You can see all the parts I threw at it, but me and my buddy here started diving into this thing and ripping everything off. We wanted to get it down to the short block. We're not doing anything with the bottom end, or at least we're not yet. We'll talk about that here in another minute or so. We pulled the heads off. We pulled everything off, and it's a good time now to try and inspect everything and kind of see what we're dealing with. You'll see here in a second, definitely some of the parts were probably ready to be replaced, just like this timing chain here. It's got a little bit too much slop in it. Let's pull that stock, very baby camshaft out and get this thing all prepped up for some new go fast parts, like these cylinder heads from Flowtech. So we got some nice aluminum cylinder heads from Flowtech. These are a great budget option. They come fully assembled with springs and everything you need. I did do some measurements there just to make sure with the cam that I was running, I didn't need more valve spring. There's my cat, he popped in to say hello. Talked to Flowtech, they said, nah, you're good. Went ahead, stabbed in a Trick Flow Specialties camshaft. This is their stage 1 cam, went in without any issues. Brand new roller timing chain. And here's where we started to run into the real issues. The problem that we ran into here is we just didn't have the piston-to-valve clearance. And you're probably wondering why. I'm not going to tell you right now. You got to go back and watch other videos. You can learn all about that. But like a crazy person, I said, you know what? I'm not getting the piston-to-valve clearance with the dial indicator. Let's try and clay it and see if I get a different result. And that's the definition of insanity right there, is keeping trying different things and hoping for a different result. Well, spoiler alert, got the same result. Did not have enough piston-to-valve clearance. So I scratched my head and tried to figure out what to do. I went ahead at this point and decided, you know what? I'm going to make up my own tool and fly cut these pistons, or fly grind, for lack of a better term, these pistons with the motor still in the car. So that's what I did. I made up my own tooling fixture using an old cylinder head, and I went through and cut 16 different locations on all 8 of the pistons. And then I had to go back and measure everything and make sure that I now had enough piston-to-valve clearance. It was super tedious. I don't recommend doing this, but if you wind up with an 87 block and you want to put a camshaft in it, chances are you're going to have to do something like this. So that's what you see me doing right here. This was really the toughest part, and then after this it started to get easier because now we're getting ready to go ahead and start actually throwing some parts on here. So here, finally, we got those cylinder heads going on and they look great. Let me tell you what, these things are a lot lighter than those stock cast iron heads, and the ports are bigger both on the intake and the exhaust side. Got those going on here. In a second, you're gonna see me throw the roller rocker arms on. Just stuck with 1.6 rocker arms, but full rollers, which is nice. Getting the gaskets all set up for this Edelbrock Victor Jr. single plane intake, which is a little bit racier than the dual plane I had on there. Couldn't leave those stock cast iron manifolds. Had to install a set of Patriot headers and custom mandrel bent exhaust. Let's hear how it sounds. As you can see, it was running much better, but I still had that super tiny stock exhaust. It was like a 2-inch exhaust system. So I went ahead and I added an X pipe, got rid of all that 2-inch exhaust, put on an X pipe. I went with a set of Flowmaster Super 44 mufflers, and I think that's gonna give it a much more correct sound for this setup, and it's certainly gonna flow a lot better. I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve before we get to the dyno. This was kind of the second to last thing, and then in a little bit, before we go back and weigh it, we're also going to install an electric fan, but I'm sure you guys want to hear how this exhaust sounds, so let's check that out first. We went back to the exact same scale. We had 3/4 of a tank of gas, just like before, and it weighed 2860. We saved 80 pounds. And then of course we had to do a little bit of engine dress up and that electric fan before heading to the dyno. First few pulls, it laid down similar numbers before any tuning or tweaking, and that was right around 280 horsepower. Now, there was a sneaky suspicion that the secondaries were not opening up fully. So what happened is I went ahead and filmed one of the dyno pulls right over the top of the carburetor. And basically what you'll see is the secondaries start to open, but they don't open all the way. And it turned out that it was an issue not so much with the carburetor, but with the throttle linkage itself, the cable specifically. Fixing that throttle issue was massive. And when I say massive, I mean 50 more horsepower massive. This is back to back, same everything. We didn't touch fueling, we didn't touch timing, we just fixed the throttle, and look at those gains. I'll show you a few more pulls to back it up. So before we talk about whether or not we hit our original goal, take a look at these gains. We gained 161 rear wheel horsepower. This is absolutely insane. All we did was heads, cam, and intake. These are all bolt-ons, plus an exhaust system that you can do at home.
So after all that, did we do it? We did it. And how do we do it? Look, the original number there was 335. We only made 328, but all of those parts we added, those lightweight headers, the shorter exhaust, the different intake, the different cylinder heads, 2860, right? So we saved a ton of weight. We made just under what we were initially searching for, and what that comes out to is around 0.115 horsepower per pound. Similarly, we made more torque than I expected to, and just like I said in the beginning of the video, remember what I said? I said, look, Here's your torque, here's your horsepower. We're gonna take this and we're just gonna shift it up just like that. And that's exactly what we did. So on a budget, we were able to beat the power to weight ratio of a stock 2021 Mach 1 with budget parts at home. How cool is that? We did it. We got really close too. I knew when I did the math initially and I knew the parts that I was putting on this thing. Look, I wasn't throwing the bank at it, okay? You could go with a set of CNC cylinder heads. You could do some trick intake, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff. You could hack this thing up and put long tubes on it, fuel, you know, whatever you want. But that wasn't what this was about. This was about doing it yourself at home on a budget. And it turns out you can make decent power with these old cars, especially when they're lightweight. Now, as you know, if you watch my channel, which I hope you do, my Mach 1 is twin turbocharged. So it makes way more than 441. I'll tell you, it makes over double that to the tire now on high boost. So check out those videos. What's next for the Comet, you might ask? Well, it's a ton of fun to drive with all this extra power. Don't get me wrong, but with that cam, with everything, the fact that it wants to be in higher RPMs now, it wants a little bit more gear. So the folks at Quick Performance, I got on the phone with them and we're gonna put together a nice rear end for this thing, still on a budget. So we're gonna keep the Ford 8-inch, but we're gonna do something a little more fun so we get rid of that one wheel peel and a little more gear in this thing. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I do all this stuff myself and I really appreciate it when you watch my channel. It helps me out, helps me make more videos. So hit that like and subscribe and we will see you next time on Truck and Roll. Thanks for watching.